the evaluation of the nomination Maratha Military Landscapes of India, and this is on page 25 of document in faith before. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. This is the presentation of the ECOMOS evaluation of the Maratha Military Landscapes of India. The ECOMOS report can be found in document INF 8B on page 92 of the English version and page 121 of the French version. On this evaluation, ECOMOS has received a letter on factual errors and has acknowledged some of these errors. The Maratha Military Landscape of India comprises 12 large-scale fortifications with surrounding topographic, geomorphological and environmental features. They include 4 maritime forts located along the Konkan coast and 8 hill forts, 7 on the Sahyadri range, also known as Western Ghat, and 1 on the Eastern Ghat. They were part of a dense and complex fortification system that the Marathas developed or adapted to extend their defense, protect trade, maintain military control, and expand their territory. It contributed to their rapid rise to power and affirmation as a major military and political players in the Indian subcontinent between the second half of the 17th century and the early 19th century, until the British ended their rule. The nominated forts are presented as nodes or anchors in a system of fortification. 11 forts are in the state of Maharashtra, while 1 Jinji fort is in Tamil Nadu. The large buffer zones encompass secondary and tertiary fortification, as well as geomorphological and landscape features. Throughout the nomination process, the boundaries of the nominated forts were enlarged, while the buffer zones were reduced. The nominated forts are deemed to be of outstanding universal value, as they would embody the political and philosophical views of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, the founder of the Maratha kingdom, as he conceived, constructed, reconstructed, captured, and reinforced these forts. The serial nomination aims to illustrate the Maratha military system, which allowed them to rise to power against pre-existing and often larger competing polities and empires. Between the 17th and the 19th centuries, the Marathas managed to control most of the territory that was once under the Mughal rule. The state party has undertaken a challenging nomination. ECOMOS recognized the immense effort that has been done by the state party that reflects an important historical period for the Indian subcontinent, marked by significant geopolitical and socio-economical changes, advancement in military technology, and complex themes such as state formation, large-scale territorial defense control, and military strategy. However, ECOMOS noticed that the focus of the nomination swings between the idea of a cultural landscape and that of a territorial system or network of fortification that structured the territory on a large scale. This indecision emerges in the description, the proposed justification for the criteria, the discussion of integrity and authenticity, and the rationale for component selection and boundary delineation. And this has not assisted the state party in developing a coherent nomination narrative. This partly appears still to revolve around the figure of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, despite all the additional information that were received, and partly based on the diverse range of Maratha fortification that evokes the rise, development, and fall of the Marathas up until the early 19th century. This unclarity has led, in ECOMOS' view, to an unconvincing selection of component parts. The comparative analysis has not demonstrated that the serial nomination of monuments and sites, as presently configured, has potential for being included in the alternative list. None of the proposed criteria have been found justified at this stage. Criterion 3 and 6 have been considered non-demonstrated. On the other hand, Criterion 4 might be justified by a substantially reconfigured serial nomination based on different arguments and focused on the territorial system and the integration of the defensive functions of the hierarchies of forts. The limited selection of component parts and proposed attributes, which are not all in the boundaries of the nominated properties, does not convincingly reflect the proposed outstanding universal value. The nominated series of 12 forts does not sufficiently and credibly reflect the extensive Maratha defense systems, as these 12 forts cannot reflect the functional interconnection among forts, fortifications, and strongholds of different hierarchies, and their contribution to this system. Despite the significant enlargement of the boundaries of several component parts, most of the natural and human-made landscape elements remain in the buffer zones and not within the nominated component parts. The rationale put forward by the state party for a landscape category choice was clear, but the nominated serial property as configured cannot be considered as a cultural landscape. In addition, the configuration of the nominated series and the selected component parts remains unresolved. despite the additional documentation and explanation that have been provided. The legal protection of the nominated forts appear adequate. Not all secondary, tertiary, or subsidiary forts included in the buffer zones are protected according to the cultural heritage-specific legislation. And given their contribution to reflecting the ingenuity of the Maratha defensive system, ICOMOS considers that they should be protected as per the relevant cultural heritage acts. The management system is clearly articulated and respective competencies are set out. The management plans include measures for the long-term sustenance of the heritage significance of the nominated forts. Their implementation is key to effective management. The management of the buffer zones could be strengthened through better integration of spatial and management plans. The state of conservation is uneven from good to moderate, with concerns at some nominated forts. However, full commitment by the state party has been presented to ensure that affecting factors will be resolved. Regular maintenance, stronger regulations, and effective management coordination appear necessary to address these issues. Here is a summary of the ICOMOS evaluation of the proposed outstanding universal value of the nominated property. As explained, the current nominated series does not succeed in illustrating the complex and extensive Maratha defensive system. However, a substantial reconfigured and expanded nomination could. The additional information provides grounds for a possible revised nomination focusing on a hierarchical series of forts that could reflect the extensive Maratha defensive system, supporting their rapid rise to power, as well as the Marathas' knowledge of the terrain and their territorial control strategies. To conclude, ICOMOS recommends that the examination of the nomination of the Maratha Military Landscape of India be deferred for the following main reasons. Refocusing the nomination around a series of forts reflecting the complexity and the ingenuity of the large-scale Maratha military strategy and its specifics, propose a two-phase serial nomination to reflect the double line of defense, interconnected networks of larger fortification and smaller forts and outposts, which provided territorial control and trade protection along the Western Ghat and the Konkan coast, and reframe the current nomination as the first submission of the extended series by focusing on representative clusters of coastal forts with their supporting forts. ICOMOS has also included a number of further recommendations in the draft decision to aid the long-term conservation of the property. ICOMOS also considers that any revised nomination would need to be visited by a mission on site. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Balsamo. Thank you, ICOMOS, for this presentation. I would like now whether there are any comments concerning this nomination. Now I give the floor to the representative of Mexico, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Le contexte, la dimension et la complexité de cette proposition d'inscription concernant les fortifications ont sans aucun doute représenté un défi pour les évaluateurs de l'ICOMOS. Par conséquent, nous considérons qu'il est un peu injuste de parler d'interprétation erronée de la part de l'organisme consultatif. Nous pensons que les réponses fournies par l'État partie, en guise d'informations complémentaires, ont permis de clarifier plus complètement la pertinence du bien. Les opinions divergentes concernant la pertinence de la catégorie paysage culturel montrent que le débat sur cette catégorie et d'autres catégories patrimoniales demeure une source de réflexion et d'interprétation. L'État partie s'engage à assurer une gestion intégrée et appropriée du bien, qu'il soit classé comme paysage culturel, ce qui explique pourquoi nous pensons qu'il devrait être inscrit sur la liste. Merci.
Thank you so much. I give the floor to the esteemed delegate of Greece, followed by Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, for giving Greece the floor under agenda item 8B16. The delegation of Greece has carefully reviewed the nomination dossier, the additional information submitted by the State Party of India, and the ICOMOS evaluation. Based on a thorough assessment, including the identification of factual inaccuracies with broader implications, Greece has proposed an amendment for the inscription of the Maratha Military Defense System of India. We acknowledge the complexities and the scale of this nomination and appreciate ICOMOS's recognition of the unique conditions under which the Maratha defensive system developed. The role of these fortifications in shaping political sovereignty over a vast region remains unmatched. Notably, ICOMOS states that such a combination of values and attributes is not yet represented on the World Heritage List. Greece finds that the State Party presented a clear serial approach in selecting 12 strategic forts as anchors of a broader fortified network. ICOMOS focuses on the network as a cultural landscape. Our understanding is that there is no conflict between this assumption and a territorial system framework. We are convinced that these 12 forts, including Jinji Fort, are essential and best preserved representatives of the Maratha defense system across 3 strategic axes. The nomination satisfies criteria 4 for its innovative military architecture and adaptation to terrain, and 5 and 6 for its association with the Maratha philosophy, Swaraja. One could say, Mr. President, that this nomination is not so much about fortresses, but about an entire philosophical approach, deeply influenced India's later independence movement, globally resonating in post-colonial contexts. We find that the conditions of integrity, authenticity, and protection are met. We also welcome the state party's commitment to extend cultural protection to the secondary and tertiary forts within buffer zones. Taking into account the high quality of the work undertaken by the state party on this nomination and the outstanding value of the Maratha military defense system of India, Greece believes that the nomination under discussion clearly deserves to be inscribed on the World Heritage List under criteria 4 and criteria 6, and suggests that boundary extensions may be explored in a second phase. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I give the floor to the esteemed delegate of Ukraine, followed by Lebanon.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. We thank the advisory body for the report. We congratulate the State Party on the nomination of the Maratha Military Landscapes of India, a serial ensemble that offers a remarkable insight into one of the most sophisticated and resilient defense systems in Asia of those times. We recognize the nomination's strength in demonstrating how the Maratha military vision strategically combined architecture, landscape, and topography to defend sovereignty and shape cultural identity. The fortifications represent not only exceptional engineering, but also the adaptability of military planning across diverse geographies, from coastal plateaus to mountain ridges. We support the inscription of the property under criteria 3, 4, and 6, and commend the State Party for its clear commitment to undertake the required follow-up measures, particularly regarding protection regimes and impact assessments. So, Ukraine co-authors the amendment proposed by Greece and supports the inscription of the property on the World Heritage List. Merci pour votre attention.
Thank you so much. I give the floor to the esteemed delegate of Lebanon, followed by Kenya.
Thank you, Mr. President. We thank ECOMOS for their evaluation. The evaluation report expresses 3 main concerns. It considers first that the nomination under the cultural landscape category is problematic and recommends sticking to a serial nomination made of selected forts and to change the name of the property to become Maratha Military Defense System. Such proposed change does not justify a defer, nor does it prevent inscribing the property on the World Heritage List, since we have several examples of properties originally nominated as cultural landscape that were inscribed as serial properties based on ECOMOS recommendation. The second concern expressed by ECOMOS relates to the biographical association of the nomination with Shivaji. The State Party replied that the nomination is not based on such association, and ECOMOS report acknowledged this response. The third and final concern relates to the selection of the series components. While the State Party chose to nominate major primary structure that best represent the military defense system, ECOMOS insists to consider an approach based on several clusters of different hierarchy and to retain 5 components out of 12 with the secondary and tertiary force along the same defense line. Given that the fact that the property OUV is not debatable, one cannot understand ECOMOS' recommendation to defer the nomination. Looking at similar cases, we see that ECOMOS recommends inscribing the prehistoric cave and falalak of Al Aflak ensemble in Iran, while proposing to change the name of the property and to reduce the series through excluding several of its elements. Similarly, ECOMOS proposed inscribing Mount Kungan in North Korea, while retaining only half of the series components proposed by the State Party. Such discrepancies raise doubts, about the consistency of the evaluation in such a complex ensemble of properties. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I give the floor to the esteemed delegate of Kenya, followed by Kazakhstan.
Thank you, Chair. Kenya supports the inscription of the Maratha Military Landscapes of India under criteria 4 and 6. This serial nomination of 12 forts effectively demonstrates an enduring military and ideological system shaped by indigenous knowledge and complex terrain-based strategies. The nomination's attention to regional planning and environmental adaptation aligns well with Kenya's own experiences in safeguarding defensive heritage. We note the State Party's rationale for selecting 12 anchor forts that create a unique network of secondary and tertiary forts among them. We appreciate that the Maratha system, as evidenced through the 12-component forts, has a universal resonance through the narrative of sovereignty and self-rule that contributes to global dialogue about decolonization, community resilience, and nation building. The management framework, including extended boundaries and strong legal protections, provides a basis for long-term sustainability. Kenya also welcomes the state party's willingness to expand the nomination in a second phase and appreciates the committee's constructive engagement on this point. I thank you.
Thank you so much. I give the floor to the esteemed delegate of Kazakhstan, followed by Saint Vincent and Grenadines.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Maratha Military Landscapes of India represent a remarkable example of landscape-anchored military systems. The serial nomination of 12 forts reflects a comprehensive territorial strategy developed by the Marathas over centuries, showcasing a sophisticated understanding of defensive planning and architectural adaptation to varied geographies. The nomination's strength lies in its clarity. Each fort is a component of a broader system, and it is not an isolated monument. Kazakhstan appreciates the nomination's emphasis on interconnectivity, physical authenticity, and associational value, particularly in relation to the